It all began in a time when Earth seemed calm. People had rebuilt their cities after long years of struggle, and life was slowly returning to normal. Children played in the streets, markets were full of colors and sounds, and people were starting to hope again. On the surface, Earth looked peaceful, almost ordinary. But far away, beyond the stars, a very different kind of story was unfolding. In a grand hall, floating somewhere in the darkness of space, representatives of countless alien species gathered. The hall was massive, stretching farther than anyone could see. Creatures of every shape and size sat in rows, some with wings, some with glowing eyes, and others with forms humans could barely imagine. The air was heavy with tension, because a decision that could change the future of Earth and perhaps the galaxy itself was about to be made. The Alien Council had already agreed on one thing. Earth would not be allowed to remain free. It was not for anything Earth had done, at least not recently. They feared humans. They feared what humans might become. Some of the council members whispered to each other about the stories of old, about how humans had survived disasters, wars, and even threats from space. They remembered how humans, small and seemingly fragile, had always found a way to rise above challenges. For years, the aliens had debated quietly. They talked about humans as if humans were a puzzle or a problem. Some believed that Earth should be helped. Others said it should be controlled. But the decision that emerged from these discussions was far more dangerous than any human could imagine. The council voted, and the vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would be placed under controlled supervision. In simpler terms, the galaxy had agreed to enslave Earth. No human was invited to the council. No human knew that such a meeting even existed. The decision was made without a single voice from Earth. And in that moment, one alien scientist felt a twinge of unease. This scientist had spent years studying humans, observing them quietly from afar. Unlike others, this scientist did not see humans as mere animals or a threat. They saw humans as complex, unpredictable, and deeply resilient. The scientist whispered to a colleague, warning that this decision could have consequences that none of them imagined. But the warning was ignored. Meanwhile, life on Earth continued as usual. People woke up to the sound of birds, worked in offices, fields, and workshops, and lived their daily lives, unaware of the cosmic decision that had just sealed their fate. Parents told bedtime stories, friends laughed over shared meals, and lovers walked hand in hand. It was a normal day, and yet, somewhere in the galaxy, a storm was quietly forming. The council's decision was deliberate. They believed that humans, if left alone, could grow too strong, too clever, too dangerous. They thought they were preventing a disaster before it even began. But the scientists' warnings were clear. Underestimating humans was a mistake. Humans were not like other species in the galaxy. They could endure hardship, learn quickly, and adapt in ways that no one expected. As the council members celebrated their decision in the vast hall, Earth remained untouched, unaware of the shadow now looming over it. No starship had appeared yet. No fleet had descended. And that was exactly what the council wanted. They believed that a sudden display of power would make humans submit quickly. They thought fear would be enough to control a species that had never faced such an overwhelming force. But humans had a way of surprising everyone. They had faced challenges before, from natural disasters to global conflicts. And somehow, they had always found a way forward. The scientist, watching the celebrations from a corner of the hall, knew that this would not end quietly. Deep down, there was a silent hope that humans would not simply accept what was being planned for them. Back on Earth, people were unaware of the storm approaching. They went about their lives, solving small problems, worrying about daily struggles, and dreaming about the future. No one imagined that their freedom was about to be challenged in a way they had never seen before. And yet, the first cracks were forming, invisible and silent. Like the faint tremor of a distant earthquake, the alien council, confident in their control, had made a critical mistake. They judged humans by appearances, by the seeming simplicity of their daily lives, by the calm surface of their cities. They ignored what humans had shown over centuries: courage, determination, and a refusal to give up, even when everything seemed lost. In the end, Part 1 is not about battles or destruction. It is about the calm before the storm, about the moment when a species' underestimation begins. It is about the quiet lives of humans, full of hope and resilience, running alongside the calculated, cold decisions of a council that believes it can predict the future. And in that contrast lies the beginning of a story that will shake the galaxy. The scientist, still quietly observing, felt a chill. They knew what was coming. They knew that the council's choice, though unanimous, might awaken a force that none of them were ready to face. And somewhere, in the busy streets and quiet homes of Earth, life continued as usual, innocent and unaware. The stage was set. The world was calm. But very soon, everything would change. The calm on Earth did not last long. One morning, people noticed strange lights in the sky. At first, they thought it was a rare weather phenomenon or perhaps a meteor shower. But as the lights grew brighter and moved in formation, it became clear that something unusual was happening. Massive ships, larger than any human-made object, appeared above the planet. They did not make a sound, but their presence was impossible to ignore. Governments around the world were caught off guard. Satellites and radar systems detected the ships instantly, but no signals or messages came from them. Scientists tried to communicate, sending signals in every language and frequency, but there was no response. People began to panic as rumors spread quickly. Some thought the ships were peaceful visitors from another world. Others feared the worst. The alien fleets arrived with precision. They positioned themselves around the planet, blocking the atmosphere in certain zones, hovering above oceans, deserts, and major cities. And yet, the aliens made no aggressive moves. They sent messages that were calm and polite, using words that seemed almost friendly. The messages said they were here to protect Earth, to guide humans into a new era of safety. For a time, people believed them. Leaders held meetings with scientists, trying to understand the intentions of these visitors. The aliens appeared to offer help, technology, and advice. They claimed that they were acting in the best interest of humanity. On the surface, it looked like a peaceful visit, a chance for humans to meet beings from another world. But slowly, small restrictions began. Flights were limited. Certain areas of land were blocked off. Communications were monitored. Trade routes became controlled, and shipping schedules had to follow strict new rules imposed by the alien fleets. At first, the changes were subtle. People adapted, thinking these were temporary measures. Many still believed the aliens were here to help, not realizing that the true plan was far more dangerous. The alien scientist from the council, who had been uneasy about Earth's fate, watched closely. From afar, this scientist observed how humans responded to the sudden appearance of the fleets. They noticed the resilience and calm determination in human behavior. Unlike the council members who had dismissed humans as weak and predictable, this scientist understood that humans were more complex. Humans did not panic in the long term. They adjusted, observed, and quietly prepared for any eventuality. Life on Earth began to change in subtle ways. Children watched the massive ships through windows and rooftops, fascinated but cautious. Workers in offices and factories noticed restrictions on certain technologies and materials. Scientists realized that their research was now being carefully monitored. Even the media had to report on the alien presence carefully, avoiding words that might provoke the newcomers. Despite all these changes, the aliens maintained a calm and polite tone. Their appearance was not frightening, and they never showed aggression. But their presence was a constant reminder that humans were no longer entirely free. Every action was observed, every decision scrutinized. The alien fleets moved like silent shadows above the planet, a constant and invisible pressure dot. In some cities, secret meetings began. Leaders, scientists, and engineers gathered in hidden rooms to discuss what these new restrictions might mean. They realized that while the aliens claimed to be peaceful, their control over critical systems on Earth could become dangerous if misused. People quietly began to prepare, building backup plans, strengthening communications, and training teams to respond to emergencies. The calm exterior of Earth hid a growing tension beneath. Meanwhile, the alien scientists tried to reach out to their council, sending messages of warning. They described what they observed. Humans were patient, intelligent, and capable of organizing themselves in ways the council had not anticipated. The scientists warned that imposing strict control could provoke resistance rather than compliance. But the council remained silent, confident that humans would remain submissive. As days turned into weeks, small incidents tested human patience. An alien monitoring station accidentally restricted access to a major port. A shipment of essential supplies was delayed, causing minor shortages. People grew frustrated, but they adapted quickly. Communities found ways to share resources, and new systems of communication were quietly set up to bypass alien restrictions without causing open conflict. The aliens noticed this adaptability. Some were surprised by how quickly humans adjusted. Others in the council dismissed it as temporary cleverness that would fade with time. But the scientists continued to argue that humans were unlike any other species in the galaxy. Humans could endure challenges, learn quickly, and turn disadvantages into opportunities. Despite the restrictions and constant surveillance, life on Earth continued in its own way. Families celebrated birthdays quietly. Children learned in schools under new regulations, and workers continued their routines. The planet adapted to the new reality without giving the aliens the satisfaction of seeing fear or chaos. And yet, a quiet tension grew. People began asking questions. Why were these ships here? Why were humans being monitored so closely? What did the aliens really want? Even as they continued with their lives, a sense of unease settled over the world. People were beginning to realize that this polite control might be only the beginning of something far greater, and perhaps far more dangerous. The alien scientists watched these changes closely, noting the patience and quiet strength of humanity. Unlike the council, this scientist began to wonder if they had underestimated Earth. They saw humans quietly organizing, preparing, and adapting, all while maintaining a sense of normalcy. The scientist knew that if humans were pushed too far, the outcome could be unpredictable, and the consequences could reach across the galaxy. By the end of the first month, humans had fully adapted to the presence of the alien fleets. They did not panic. They did not submit blindly. They observed, planned, and prepared. And somewhere, deep inside the council halls, the alien scientists continued to plead for caution. They understood that what was meant as control could quickly become a mistake of unimaginable scale. Earth had been tested for the first time, not with war or direct attack, but with the quiet pressure of control and surveillance. Humans proved that even under observation, under restriction, they could remain calm, intelligent, and organized. The stage was set for the next phase, where the real test of Earth's strength and resilience would begin. The alien fleets hovered silently, confident in their authority. Yet, for the first time, a small voice of doubt echoed in their council. The scientists' warnings were clear, but would anyone listen before it was too late? On Earth, life continued, simple and human, unaware that a much larger story was unfolding just above their heads. Life on Earth had adjusted to the quiet pressure of the alien fleets hovering above. People had learned to live with the restrictions, the observation towers, and the constant presence of beings from another world. At first, the measures seemed small, manageable, and even polite. But then, a small incident changed everything. A human cargo ship, carrying essential supplies between two continents, accidentally crossed into a restricted zone designated by the aliens. The crew, unaware of the newly drawn boundaries, tried to follow normal procedures, sending signals and warnings in the hope that someone would clarify the situation. On Earth, this was seen as a minor mistake, something that could be corrected without serious consequences. The response from the aliens, however, was immediate and extreme. Without warning, a ship from the fleet destroyed the cargo vessel entirely. There was no communication, no explanation, no chance to correct the error. Families, colleagues, and entire communities connected to the crew were devastated. The news spread quickly across Earth, reaching every corner of the globe. Panic was avoided, but anger and fear began to rise. People were not sure if the aliens understood the impact of their actions, or if they simply did not care. World leaders, scientists, and emergency teams convened immediately. Meetings were held behind closed doors, far from the public eye. For the first time, there was a real understanding that humanity was facing a species that could impose its will without warning. Plans that had once seemed sufficient now appeared fragile. Humanity realized that their calm adaptation might not protect them forever. Even as people mourned and tried to understand the event, life on Earth continued. Schools opened, markets operated, and people returned to work, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. But beneath the surface, there was a quiet storm brewing. Communities began forming networks to track the alien restrictions, to share knowledge about new boundaries, and to prepare for potential future incidents. Humanity had a long history of surviving adversity, and the cargo ship's destruction reminded them that they might need that resilience now more than ever. The alien scientist, watching from afar, was horrified. They had warned the Council that humans were not a species that could be easily controlled through fear or strict regulation. The destruction of the ship was proof that the Council's assumptions were flawed. Humans, the scientists knew, could be pushed too far. And when that happened, the consequences would be unpredictable. Even dangerous. Despite the tragedy, Earth remained outwardly calm. People did not lash out. They did not surrender to fear. Instead, they began working quietly, analyzing what had happened and how to prevent such disasters in the future. Emergency response teams were organized, new communication protocols were established, and communities strengthened their support systems. Humanity, in its natural way, turned tragedy into preparation. Meanwhile, the Alien Council continued to believe in their control. They assumed that humans would eventually accept their oversight and submit to their authority. Most species in the galaxy had done so when faced with superior power. The council members ignored the warnings of the scientists, confident that humans were just like any other species, eventually yielding to the greater force. But humans were not like other species. The crew's loss sparked debates, innovations, and cautious strategies. Engineers redesigned transportation systems to avoid future incidents. Scientists began researching ways to counteract or bypass alien surveillance and control measures. Leaders quietly coordinated on an international level, sharing information and planning strategies without alarming the general population. Humans were patient, yes, but they were also observant, intelligent, and resourceful. Across cities and rural areas alike, people began noticing changes in the alien presence. Monitoring stations became more numerous. Drones flew silently across the skies. Signals intercepted by human scientists suggested that the aliens were not just watching, they were learning. Every action humans took was being observed and analyzed. And every time the aliens assumed submission, humans quietly adapted, preparing for what might come next. The first real breaking point had arrived. It was not a battle fought with weapons, but a test of patience, intelligence, and resilience. Humans were learning the limits of the aliens' control, and the aliens, despite their advanced technology, were beginning to notice that humans were not so easily subdued. The alien scientists tried once more to reach out to their council. They sent detailed reports explaining what they had seen. Humans were calm under pressure, but that calm hid planning, preparation, and quiet resistance. They warned that if the council continued to impose strict control or punish humans further, the reaction could escalate beyond anyone's expectations. The council, as usual, dismissed these concerns. They believed humans were clever, but ultimately manageable. They had never faced a species with the combination of adaptability, intelligence, and resilience that humans possessed. They assumed that fear and authority were enough to control Earth. They were wrong. Meanwhile, on Earth, ordinary people were beginning to demonstrate their strength in ways that were subtle but profound. Teachers taught children to think critically and to observe the world carefully. Engineers found ways to work around minor restrictions imposed by the aliens. Communities established emergency plans and communication networks. Humanity was quietly preparing, not for rebellion yet, but for survival, and for a world in which they might have to assert their freedom. As the weeks passed, the tension grew. Humans remained outwardly calm, but every household, city, and community had felt the impact of the cargo ship's destruction. The memory of that day became a symbol, a reminder that while life continued, they were no longer entirely free. And the alien scientist, observing silently, knew that this was only the beginning. The breaking point was not violent yet, but it had changed everything. Humanity understood the stakes. They were no longer just living under observation. They were living under threat. And in their quiet, resilient way, humans began to prepare for a future in which they would not be passive. They were learning, adapting, and waiting for the right moment to show that their calm exterior did not mean submission, even as the council remained confident. Even as most species believed Earth could be controlled, the first cracks in that assumption had begun. Humans had endured tragedy, observed their oppressors, and quietly begun to organize. And the alien scientist, still watching, knew that when humans reached the limit of their patience, the galaxy would witness a force that no one had anticipated. The stage was set for the next chapter, a story of silent preparation, of intelligence and resilience, of humanity learning that the calm before the storm can often be the most powerful moment of all. Earth had faced its first real test, and it had survived, not by surrendering, but by quietly preparing, observing, and learning. Earth had endured the first wave of control, and even the tragic loss of the cargo ship, but humanity had learned its lesson. The planet had not panicked, nor had it submitted. Instead, humans had begun to organize quietly, preparing for what they could not yet fully see. They studied the alien fleets, monitored their movements, and analyzed every restriction and rule the newcomers had imposed. Every act of patience on Earth was also an act of preparation. At first, the aliens assumed Earth's silence meant submission. They interpreted calmness and adaptation as weakness, proof that humans would follow their rules without question. But humans were not weak. Humans were clever, patient, and above all, persistent. While life on the surface seemed normal, a hidden network of scientists, engineers, and strategists was quietly putting plans into action. They shared information globally, setting up systems to monitor the alien fleets and track their patterns without alerting the observers. Then, one morning, everything changed. Without warning, Earth's secret systems activated. Invisible to the aliens, these systems were built over decades, quietly designed as safeguards against unknown threats. Communications networks that humans had been developing for years began transmitting coded signals. Defense systems, dormant until now, quietly came online. sensors, satellites, and monitoring devices hidden in cities, oceans, and remote areas activated simultaneously, forming a web of protection and observation that humans had built without the aliens knowing. The alien fleets noticed the first signs immediately. Systems that had been under their control suddenly went dark. Communications channels they relied on were jammed or rerouted. Drones sent to observe Earth faltered, spinning out of control. The alien commanders scrambled to understand what had happened. They had believed Earth could be controlled, monitored, and restricted. They were shocked to see that humans had quietly prepared defenses that none of them had anticipated. On the surface, humanity continued as usual. People went to work, schools opened, and children played, almost unaware that a quiet revolution was unfolding above them. Scientists and engineers worked behind the scenes, maintaining these systems and ensuring that every move by the alien fleets could be detected and countered. Humanity was acting like a single organism, coordinated and precise, but without panic or chaos. The alien scientist who had warned the Council months earlier was both amazed and fearful. They had suspected that humans were more capable than most species assumed, but even this level of preparation surpassed expectations. From a distance, the scientist observed how humans could work together silently and intelligently, using technology, strategy, and foresight in ways that even advanced alien civilizations had not predicted. As the systems came online, the first human countermeasures began. The aliens had assumed that physical confrontation would come first, but humans acted differently. They did not strike with weapons or attack alien ships immediately. Instead, they disabled key monitoring systems, temporarily shutting down satellites and observation towers. They disrupted communication channels, forcing alien fleets to rely on older, less reliable systems. They made subtle, precise moves that demonstrated intelligence, strategy, and restraint. The effect on the aliens was immediate. Their fleets, which had hovered confidently for months, suddenly lost coordination. Some ships drifted off course. Some systems failed without explanation. Confusion spread among the alien commanders, who had never anticipated that the species they sought to control could act so deliberately and effectively without open confrontation. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans quietly celebrated small victories. Engineers noted each system restored to functionality, each alien observation tower disabled, and each fleet disruption that went undetected. Humanity was proving that intelligence, strategy, and patience could be more powerful than raw force. People continued with their daily lives, maintaining appearances of normalcy, while the real work of preparation and subtle resistance unfolded behind the scenes. The Alien Council, watching from afar, was slow to react. Most members still assumed that humans would eventually submit, that this small-scale disruption was temporary, and that Earth would be forced back into compliance with enough time and pressure. They did not yet understand the scale of human ingenuity, or their ability to coordinate globally in secrecy. The alien scientist, however, sent urgent messages. They warned that humans had reached a level of organization that could surpass the Council's expectations at any moment. They described the systems coming online, the coordination across cities and continents, and the subtle disruption of alien technology. They pleaded with the Council to reconsider further actions against Earth, warning that pushing humans too far could result in consequences no one was ready for. But the Council ignored these warnings, confident in their superiority. They believed technology alone could keep humans in check. They underestimated the adaptability and creativity that defined the human species. Humans were not merely reacting. They were learning, observing, and preparing for the right moment to reveal their strength. The first visible effect of Earth's countermeasures appeared when alien fleets tried to make small maneuvers to enforce new restrictions. Ships that had previously moved with precision were now delayed or misdirected. communications were slow and unreliable. Sensors designed to monitor human activity failed intermittently, causing frustration among alien commanders. Every minor disruption was a sign of something greater, though most aliens could not yet comprehend it. Humanity, in turn, remained calm. Leaders and strategists knew that patience was a weapon. They did not act aggressively. They did not provoke unnecessary conflict. Instead, every move was calculated, every system tested quietly before being activated. The people of Earth were learning not just to survive under alien supervision, but to operate strategically, proving that intelligence and planning could overcome control and fear. By the end of the first week of active countermeasures, the alien fleets were struggling. Their assumptions about human weakness had been shattered. Systems they relied upon no longer functioned reliably. Communication and navigation were disrupted. Confusion spread among the aliens, and for the first time, they began to doubt whether Earth could be fully controlled. For humans, this was not a celebration of violence, but a moment of empowerment. People realized that despite the overwhelming presence of alien fleets, humanity had strength beyond what the Council had imagined. Patience, intelligence, and coordinated effort had become their greatest weapons. The planet had silently prepared, and now the galaxy had begun to notice. The alien scientists continued to watch, realizing that humanity had passed a threshold. They had begun to take control of their own destiny without anyone noticing. The calm patience of humans was not submission, it was strategy. And the scientists feared what would happen if the Council continued to ignore this simple truth. Life on Earth, meanwhile, continued almost normally. Markets opened, children learned, and people worked. But the planet had changed. Humans had learned to act quietly, to coordinate globally, and to prepare for challenges far beyond what any alien had expected. Earth was no longer a passive participant. It was quietly asserting itself, not with violence, but with intelligence, strategy, and an unwavering determination to survive and protect its freedom. The stage was set. The alien fleets were confused, disrupted, and beginning to understand that humans could not be underestimated. The Council, still overconfident, had no idea that Earth was preparing to shift the balance of power entirely. And humanity, calm on the surface, had learned that patience, preparation, and intelligence could be more powerful than force itself. The next phase would not be subtle. Humanity had proven its ability to observe, learn, and act strategically. The stage was ready for a confrontation that would reveal the true strength of Earth, not through violence, but through the power of resilience, intelligence, and careful planning. The quiet storm of preparation had become visible, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. By the time Earth's secret systems had been fully activated, humanity had reached a point where it was no longer just defending itself quietly. The planet had been patient, it had endured losses, and it had adapted under pressure. Now it was ready to act in a way that would surprise the entire galaxy. The alien fleets, confident and watchful for months, had underestimated humans. They believed that control and technology alone would keep the species in check. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. The first moves were subtle but powerful. Humans did not rush into direct confrontation. They began by disabling critical alien monitoring systems, one by one, across key positions in the atmosphere and in orbit. Energy fields that had tracked every human movement were temporarily disrupted. Observation satellites that hovered above cities failed at the same time, creating confusion among the aliens. Without these systems, the fleets struggled to predict human responses or coordinate their own movements. While the aliens scrambled to restore their systems, humanity acted with precision. Engineers and scientists, working together across continents, executed coordinated operations that exploited weaknesses in alien technology. Small but critical interruptions were created in communication channels between the alien fleets. Navigation systems on some ships became unreliable. Surveillance drones faltered. The aliens realized they were no longer in full control, and panic began to ripple quietly through their ranks. The humans' approach was deliberate. They did not destroy the alien ships outright. Instead, they neutralized their technological advantages, forcing the aliens to operate in ways they were not accustomed to. Entire civilizations, who had relied on those fleets for observation and control, suddenly found themselves vulnerable. While humans maintained life as normal on the planet, their invisible operations were shaking the confidence of species across multiple worlds. On Earth, humanity's quiet resistance became a wave of calculated power. Cities worked together to support the hidden networks, ensuring that every disruption was seamless and undetectable by ordinary observers. People went about their daily routines, but each individual, unknowingly, contributed to the planet's strategic strength. A delivery truck, a shipping vessel, even routine energy usage, all fed into systems that maintained Earth's coordinated countermeasures. The alien scientists, who had long doubted the Council's decisions, watched in amazement. They had predicted that humans were clever and resilient, but even this level of precision, global coordination, and adaptability exceeded expectations. Humans were acting not out of anger, but out of intelligence, strategy, and a deep will to survive. The scientists realized that if the Council continued to ignore these capabilities, the galaxy itself could face consequences that no one could predict. Then, the first direct effects on the galaxy began to appear. Alien colonies that relied on uninterrupted communications and trade with the fleets started experiencing failures. Ships were stranded or misdirected. Systems that had been assumed secure became vulnerable. Entire infrastructures began to falter. For the first time, species across different star systems realized that Earth was not a passive planet. It was a force capable of disrupting not just its own monitoring, but entire networks across the galaxy. Despite the chaos, humanity on Earth maintained a calm surface. People continued to work, learn, and care for one another. They did not revel in fear or destruction. They acted with purpose and discipline. Each action was designed to protect their planet while sending a clear message to anyone watching. Earth was not weak. It was intelligent, capable, and unwilling to be controlled unjustly. The Alien Council, still confident, failed to fully understand what was happening. They had assumed humans would act predictably, that fear and authority would be enough to maintain order. But humans were unlike any species they had encountered. Humans acted strategically, quietly, and with patience. And now, that patience had turned into action that disrupted entire systems, showing that the planet's resilience was far beyond what the Council had imagined. Humanity's efforts were precise and targeted. The goal was not destruction for its own sake, but disruption and demonstration of capability. Alien trade routes were interrupted, navigation signals scrambled, and critical communication lines disabled. Across multiple systems, civilizations that had assumed control over Earth were forced to realize that their influence was fragile. Fear began to creep in, not fear of humans attacking directly, but fear of the intelligence, coordination, and patience that humanity displayed. Even as alien fleets attempted to respond, they were always one step behind. Humans had observed their patterns for months, had studied their technologies, and had developed contingency plans for nearly every possible scenario. Each alien countermeasure was met with a quiet human adaptation that neutralized it before it could take full effect. Humanity was not just surviving. It was learning, improving, and teaching the galaxy that control was never guaranteed. Then, humanity sent its first clear message to the galaxy. It was not a threat filled with violence, nor a declaration of war. It was simple, direct, and powerful. We asked for peace. You chose control. Now you understand the cost. The message spread across communications networks, reaching fleets, colonies, and councils. It was a message of intelligence and restraint, but also of power. Every species watching realized that Earth had not merely survived under alien oversight, it had overcome it in a way that preserved life while demonstrating unstoppable strategy. The aliens, for the first time, began to comprehend the scale of humanity's capabilities. They realized that humans were patient, intelligent, and capable of coordinated action on a planetary level. They understood that force alone could not subdue a species that thought, planned, and adapted with such precision. The alien scientists, who had long advocated for caution, now saw the truth. Humanity was not only capable of defending itself, it was capable of reshaping the power dynamics of the galaxy. On Earth, the people remained calm and focused. There was no panic, no chaos, no unnecessary destruction. Life continued as usual, but beneath the surface, humanity had proven that strategy, patience, and intelligence were more powerful than fear and aggression. They had protected their planet, disrupted alien operations, and sent a message that the galaxy would never forget Dot by the end of this phase. Entire alien systems had begun to reevaluate their assumptions. The council that had authorized Earth's enslavement faced pressure from within and across the galaxy. Species that had supported the plan realized they had underestimated the human race. Humanity's calm, strategic response had not only protected the planet, but had challenged assumptions about power, control, and intelligence across multiple civilizations. Earth had acted without starting a war, without reckless aggression, and without unnecessary destruction. Its power lay in preparation, observation, coordination, and the quiet demonstration of intelligence. And as the galaxy watched, it became clear that humanity was not a species to control or underestimate. The stage was set for the final act. The aliens now understood that Earth's strength was not in weapons alone, but in patience, strategy, and the ability to act decisively when the time was right. Humanity had shown that even under oppression, it could rise, adapt, and assert itself in ways no one had anticipated. The calm before the storm had given way to deliberate action, and the galaxy had been forever changed by the quiet, unstoppable force of human resilience. After months of careful preparation, observation, and subtle resistance, Earth had finally proven that it could not be controlled. Humanity had shown intelligence, patience, and resilience that no alien species had expected. The alien fleets, once confident and dominant, were now disoriented and cautious. The quiet calm of Earth had transformed into a force that the galaxy could no longer ignore. It was not chaos or violence that had won, but strategy, coordination, and the unwavering determination of a species fighting for its freedom. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had once supported the Council's decision to enslave Earth began to feel the consequences. Trade networks faltered. Communication systems failed. Observation fleets became unreliable. Planets that had assumed their security depended on the aliens' control now realized they were vulnerable. Fear spread, not fear of humans attacking, but fear of the intelligence, organization, and patience that humanity displayed. Every species that had underestimated humans now understood that Earth had become a power unlike any they had encountered. Humanity's response remained measured and purposeful. There was no indiscriminate attack. People on Earth continued with their lives, maintaining schools, offices, and communities, while the hidden networks of engineers, strategists, and scientists ensured that the alien operations remained disrupted. Every action was precise, targeted, and effective. Humans had learned that power did not always need to be loud or violent. It could be quiet, clever, and invisible until the moment of revelation. The Alien Council, confronted with the reality of Earth's capability, faced internal chaos. Many species that had voted for Earth's enslavement began sending messages of apology and negotiation. They realized that their assumptions had been wrong and that the consequences of underestimating humans could have been catastrophic. Some feared that continued resistance from Earth could destabilize entire systems. Others simply wanted peace and survival. On Earth, leaders carefully considered the responses from the galaxy. They did not seek revenge or unnecessary destruction. Instead, humanity extended cautious protection and support to those civilizations willing to make peace. Systems damaged by human countermeasures were restored where possible, and resources were shared with planets that showed willingness to cooperate. The message was clear. Earth did not seek war, but it would defend its freedom and teach a lesson to anyone who threatened it. The alien scientists, who had long observed humanity, finally made their journey to Earth. They were greeted not as an authority or overseer, but as a guest. Humans welcomed the scientist with respect, curiosity, and open communication. They discussed what had happened, why the Council's assumptions had failed, and how humans had managed to act with intelligence and restraint. The scientist realized that Earth's power was not in aggression, but in strategic thinking, cooperation, and the capacity to endure hardship without losing focus. Even as peace negotiations began across the galaxy, humans remained cautious. They knew that not all species would easily accept a new balance of power. Some might resist, others might attempt manipulation. But humanity had learned a critical lesson over the months of observation: preparation and strategic action, patience, intelligence, and careful planning were stronger than fear, force, or intimidation. Communities on Earth continued to rebuild and grow, integrating lessons learned during the alien occupation and the countermeasures. Humanity had become more united, more aware of its own strength, and more capable of coordinating on a global scale. People had realized that their resilience, creativity, and ability to work together were what made them formidable, not technology alone, nor numbers, nor weapons. The true strength of Earth lay in the spirit of its people. Across the galaxy, the impact of humanity's actions became a lesson no one would forget. The Council and every species that had supported the plan to control Earth learned a simple truth: humans were not to be underestimated. A species that could survive disasters, endure oppression, and act strategically when provoked was a force that could reshape entire systems. The galaxy recognized that intelligence, patience, and strategic planning were as powerful as fleets, weapons, or authority. On Earth, life returned to a new sense of normal. Children played freely, communities thrived, and people celebrated not only their survival, but their ability to protect their freedom without losing their humanity. Humanity had faced an unprecedented challenge and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more unified. The lesson was clear. Peace could be maintained, but only with awareness, preparation, and respect for the intelligence of others, not the alien fleets, now retreating or reassigning their operations, carried with them a newfound respect for humans. Species that had once seen Earth as weak, passive, or easily controlled now understood that the planet was a force to be reckoned with. The alien scientist, returning to the Council, shared the story of Earth's resilience and strategy, emphasizing that the species' intelligence and patience had been the true weapons that secured freedom. Finally, humanity sent a clear, simple message to the galaxy. Earth did not seek war, but it would defend its people and its freedom. The planet had acted not out of anger, but out of necessity and intelligence. The galaxy would never again mistake calmness for weakness, patience for submission, or adaptability for fragility. Earth had endured, learned, and emerged victorious, not through brute force, but through courage, strategy, and unity. And so, the story of Earth concluded its chapter of resistance and triumph. The planet remained free, its people stronger and wiser than ever. The galaxy had learned an unforgettable lesson. To underestimate humanity was to invite consequences no one could predict. Peace returned, built not on fear, domination, or violence, but on understanding, strategy, and respect. Humanity had faced the greatest challenge of its history, and had proven that the true power of a species lies in its mind. Its unity and its spirit. Earth had shown that it could endure oppression, respond with intelligence, and teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The planet was calm, life continued, and humanity had become a force defined not by fear or weapons, but by strategy, resilience, and the unwavering will to protect its freedom. The galaxy would remember this story for generations to come.